Hi, and welcome to part 12 of this reading of the Rape Gang Inquiry Report in full. We are currently in the Appendix 1, and we are continuing with another testimony here from, quote, Jojo, the parent of a survivor. There is a widespread belief that children are only groomed or sexually exploited if they come from chaotic backgrounds or are in care. This was not the case for our family. Grooming has no boundaries. I had 5 children. All of them are well respected, have good jobs, have families of their own. My daughter did not come from a broken home. Another disturbing pattern emerged. We would find her dumped on our doorstep in the morning, intoxicated. The men grooming her were giving her alcohol and drugs. We questioned her about this so-called boyfriend, and she told us she loved him. When we asked his age, she said she thought he was around 25 years old. She talked about meeting his family. She was a young teenager. I could not understand how any family could accept a grown man being involved with a child. I will never forget being told by police officers that if she carried on as she was, she would end up either dead or raped. Despite saying this, they did not recognize her as a victim. They did not arrest the adult men she was being found with, even though she was only 13 or 14 years old. When my daughter was 15 years old, the police came to our door and told us that she'd been raped by 4 Asian males. They were Pakistani men. We rushed to her. She was in a terrible state and could barely walk. She had been plied with a large amount of alcohol. She was raped and had curry powder thrown over her. This took place at a hotel during Eid. Staff at the hotel had seen my daughter being escorted into a hotel room by a group of Asian men. It was the hotel manager who contacted the police, who then contacted us. My daughter's perpetrators were charged, and the case was prepared for trial. On the day of the trial, we were told the case had been dropped. We were told only that the perpetrator had a very good solicitor. No written explanation was ever provided. This moment destroyed her. She felt she had not been believed, and had not received justice. Her drinking escalated. In 2022, my daughters found their sister deceased in her flat. She was 33 years old. She died alone. I believe that the grooming, rape, and institutional failures and collapse of the justice process directly contributed to my daughter's death. Phoebe, survivor. Over the past few years, everything has been taken away from us, and none of us were prepared for it, especially me. It has been a huge culture shock to watch our old life gradually disappear, particularly as a result of what happened to me as a teenager. It's hard for my dad to put into words how much this affected him, but I know it changed him deeply. It changed all of us. Even though we've tried to move forward and rebuild our lives, nothing has ever really been the same. We had expected to be taken seriously by the police. We believed the law was there to protect us. It was deeply shocking to discover that vital evidence had been deleted from the phone we had handed over. This was redacted police. In quotations, Ross, the parent of, in quotations, Phoebe. What happened to my daughter Phoebe and the process that followed, including the complaints procedures, subject access requests, and prolonged delays without proper investigation, have had a profound impact on me and on our family. These experiences have affected me emotionally, physically, mentally, financially. They have affected my relationships, my ability to trust, my sleep, my eating habits, and the way I think. These impacts have continued over the last 3 to 4 years and are ongoing. I've had to focus on protecting Phoebe, attempting to repair the damage done to her, while at the same time committing myself fully to navigating complex complaints processes and gathering evidence to understand how we were treated. Both Phoebe and I suffer from anxiety and depression. Phoebe's health has been further impacted by her epilepsy diagnosis in 2024. If the authorities are able to treat my daughter and our family this way, I believe they're capable of doing the same to others. What has happened to Phoebe and what we have lived through over the last 3 to 4 years will stay with us forever. In quotations, Celeste, a survivor. I was then approached by one of the Slovakian men. He asked me to suck his penis, which I refused. He then began to force his penis into my mouth. I was then grabbed by a tall, muscly man wearing a pair of glasses. He shoved me down onto the floor and ripped off my clothes. I completely froze in fear while he raped me. I couldn't fight him off as he was so much bigger than me. He finished what he was doing and walked off. Before I even had the chance to take in what had just happened, another man walked in. He held my shoulders to the floor while he put his penis inside of me. I was raped by the same 4 men continuously over a 2-day period. It felt like an eternity. They would make us shower and watched whilst we did so. I was so confused at the time to why they did this. Following these events, I was prescribed sleeping medication, which was ineffective. I was also prescribed medication for bipolar disorder. However, this did not improve my condition. At no point was I offered consistent or appropriate emotional or psychological support. My foster care arranged for me to attend an art therapy session, but I did not feel these were beneficial. I felt significantly let down by the system. No professional made any meaningful effort to speak with me about my experiences following the incident. My social worker attended only for routine monthly visits, and there was no additional support provided. Approximately 3 years later, my foster carer received a telephone call informing her that my case had been discontinued due to lack of evidence. I found this extremely difficult to understand, particularly given that I had identified 4 individuals in connection with the offences committed against me. Throughout my teenage years, I continued to struggle with the emotional and psychological effects of what happened. I found it extremely difficult to cope with everyday situations that others may consider normal. Even now, at the age of 26, I continue to experience ongoing difficulties, including distress triggered by certain smells, sounds, or environments which bring back memories of the events. I have attempted to engage with various forms of counseling and therapy. However, due to my lack of trust in professionals, I have found it difficult to fully engage, and these interventions have not been successful. I wish to make clear the long-term impact these events had on my life. While I understand that some aspects of this statement may extend beyond the immediate facts of the incident, I believe it is important to explain the lasting consequences. The trauma I experienced was significant. I also feel that the response of the professionals involved made the situation more difficult than it needed to be. I feel that I was let down by South Yorkshire Police and social services in the Rotherham area. I remain deeply affected by this and continue to reflect on how others may have had similar experiences. Appendix 2. Survivor quotations. During the course of the hearings, survivors provided enlightening and harrowing evidence. Below is an example of some of the quotations that came out of the inquiry. Quote, rape gang member played a confusing dual role. He arranged girls for the men's, but also acted as a protector. He bought me phones, drinks, and made me feel special. I trusted him. Later that night, after rape gang member attacked me, rape gang member found me, bought me food, and took me home. I passed out and woke to him rubbing his penis on my lips. Quote, on one occasion, I went there with my friend We were given bottles of red wine, and after being forced to have sex with between 15 and 20 men, my friend became violently ill from the alcohol. I took her home to avoid her parents seeing her in the state she was in. My own parents called the police, but they were not interested in pursuing what happened. Quote, when the restaurant closed, he took me to where the tables were stored and we had sex. Immediately afterwards, all the restaurant workers entered the area. Rape gang member held me down while they each had sex with me, laughing during the assault. Later in the car, he insulted me and called me derogatory names, blaming me for what he had forced me into. Quote, on one occasion I woke to find rape gang member and rape gang member both having sex with me. Drinking became my way of coping. At school I was mocked and humiliated by peers. I would cry privately but pretend at school that I found it funny, even making crude jokes to fit in. Even my friends believed I was consenting. Quote, this was accommodation provided to rape gang member as temporary accommodation, as he told the council he was homeless. This flat was used to take girls for sex. We spent many nights at this flat, drinking alcohol and playing a game called Spin the Bottle. I now believe that the men manipulated the game so it always landed on me. I would often end up very drunk and naked at the end of the night, and the other girls would be taken home, but I would be kept back and subjected to sexual acts by the men. Around 5 a.m. I would be allowed home and would sneak into the house before my parents woke up. Quote, despite all this, the authorities treated me as though I was to blame for what was happening. I felt completely powerless, trapped between violent perpetrators and a system unwilling to protect me. Quote, there was a Bangladeshi man who I had 2 children with who was physically violent and knocked my tooth out, stamped my head, lots of different things. I managed to get away from him because I think he threatened to burn my house down. Quote, it was almost like they were just looking for girls to bring to this wedding celebration after everyone had gone home. Quote, I heard lots of stories from Western women where their children had been kidnapped and they'd never seen them again. Western women that had been married, gone to the Middle East, and their children had been taken. Quote, it was all of the white girls in every home that I went to. And I mean, I've seen girls locked. I remember a man opening the back of a van and I saw maybe 15 to 20 girls locked in dog cages. Looked like they were on drugs. Quote, but at the age of, I think I was 16, 17, they said to me at the sexual health clinic, and I was checked out, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, and they said the chance of me ever having children were very, very slim because of what I've been through. They said because of the chlamydia, because of the state of my ovaries, and because of the pelvic inflammatory disease, I had very bad environment in there. Basically, that probably wouldn't hold a child. Quote, I feel sick knowing that it's still going on, that nobody's wanting to do anything even now in 2026. We're still having this conversation. We're still trying to get people to talk about it. Quote, they like to take my passport and my documents and ID, and they do insurance claims for car accidents through my name that I'd been in. I'd done medicals where I'd have to walk in and claim that I had a sore neck, and they would get the money for it. Quote, I got beatings all the time whilst I was in the children's home. Lots and lots of beatings because I was telling the police. I was beaten to the point where I got an aneurysm. My hair fell out. If it wasn't me, it was someone else. Inquiry panelist. You were 15 at this point? Rape gang survivor. Yes. The one in the picture in the leather jacket. He's the one who took my virginity. Panelist. How old was he? Survivor. About 33 at the time. Quote, I've experienced retaliation and hostility within my professional role when raising concerns. I've been warned against speaking publicly and told that doing so could result in disciplinary action or dismissal. Quote, I was taken into a bathroom by the girl who'd brought me there and told to shave. She then told me that we were being sold to the men for sex. I had not known this beforehand. I did not want to participate, but I was frightened, trapped, and complied out of fear. I cannot describe in detail what happened in the bedroom. I was sexually exploited and abused by adult men. Afterwards, we were made to sleep in a small child's bed belonging to a toddler. Rape gang survivor. I disclosed directly to the staff at the children's home what was happening to me, including the sexual exploitation, the repeated trips to flats, the involvement of adult men, the exchange of money, and the reasons for my rapid, dangerous weight loss. I explained that I was frightened and felt trapped. I was told words to the effect that this did not constitute trafficking, that I was over 16 and what was happening was a matter of choice. Police were not contacted at that stage, and no immediate protective action was taken. Quote, so, rape gang member is like, do you want to kiss me? And I'm like, no, not really. He's like, right, okay, we can get it on. And I was like, no. I said I'm on my period. That was the first thing that came to mind. I wasn't, but that was my first excuse. And he was like, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. So I was like, no, 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 pushing him away. And he pulled my legs forward so that I was almost laid, like slouched. And he pushed me back, and he pulled my pants down, got on top of me, and raped me. I was saying no. I was kicking at the same time. I was 12 years old. This guy, just so I can say this clearly, was taken to trial and caught. He was put on retrial and walked away. He's now walking the streets. Quote, they would toot the horn of the car, and then a child would be taken to the front door by a staff member of the children's home. Inquiry panelist. Were there any other objects that they raped you with? Rape gang survivor. Coca-Cola bottles. Keys for some reason. Somebody tried to put a baseball bat up there. Panelist. Do you think they were doing these things for sexual gratification? Survivor. It's about harm. They don't care. They don't care about you. They usually try doing these things after they've done the sexual bit that they wanted to do. Once they've finished that's it. They can do what they want to you. That's how it seemed. Quote, I remember the first time I was taken into the sexual health clinic by my social worker. She walked me in there, and it turned out that I had chlamydia in my throat and vagina. I'd also got gonorrhea at the time. At the same time, they also diagnosed me with genital warts. And then a few months later, I was taken back again. I was diagnosed with chlamydia again, gonorrhea again, but this time it was also a pelvic inflammatory disease. Never once did any nurse or doctor question any of that. Quote, there was a circle of Pakistani nationals. They were pointing to the children as if they were choosing them. Inquiry panelist. When you were picked, what happened? Survivor. The male staff at the children's home would keep taking children to the arcade and done up in nice clothing. Panelist. So are you saying that the staff at the home were selling you to these foreign men? Survivor. Yes, it very much looked like it. Something was being set up. They knew the names of the children. They were all hanging around in back-to-back taxis. Quote. Yes, loads of times. They used to, tell me things about the good angel and the bad angel that I've been, kind of possessed, and they've got to punish me to get the badness out of me. That's why they have to rape me and do all this stuff to me to get the badness out of me. I've got to be punished. And yet, it was just all kind of stuff like that. The words they say to you, you're Gora, like white trash and white skin. Quote, when I was 15, they trafficked me to Birmingham. I walked into the bathroom in the flat, and there was a dead girl in the bath. Quote, I was told by a female gang member to gain more weight. She said Somali men like big women. I need to eat more, and was trying to feed me. Quote, I went into the flat expecting a house party. Instead, I was met with a cream flat that smelled very nice. A very calm environment. Pictures of children and a child and a little girl on the wall, and 6 Somali men in the lounge sitting around a coffee table chewing something. Quote, I didn't want to do it. I went for a cigarette by this window, and one of the men came over to me, hand on my throat, next to the window, going, no, you need to do it. You need to do it. And I thought, I'm going out of this fucking window if I don't do what I'm told. So I did. Quote, I even got asked to get married to someone from Pakistan for money. You don't have to sleep with them if you don't want, but if you want to be with them, you can, and things like that. Quote, he put out a cigarette on the baby's face. Quote, I remember closing my eyes, and then every now and again I'd peep, and all I can remember is just seeing his face. When someone's really, really trying to force it in, and then after he did it, I just remember things being in so much pain and bleeding loads. I was really, really bleeding. Quote, we were given absinthe and vodka and a soft drink to mix with. Literally one of the strongest alcohols was given to us, and by no mistake, it was to exploit us in some of the most horrendous ways possible that a child could be. Quote, I grew up in a middle-class house with 2 parents that had been married for a considerable time, and I think that's quite important because most of the time the idea is that grooming gang victims are in care, or they're runaways, or they're from generally lower-class backgrounds, and I say this just to defeat the presumption that it is only a vulnerable, stereotypically vulnerable girl that can be groomed. Because the perpetrators are insidious and they'll target anyone. They will find weakness or vulnerability anywhere. Quote, it happened in summer 2017 when I was about 14 when I first met the second group of perpetrators. I met them through another friend who was being actively groomed by them, very severely. The first time we met was in a park, which was now a massive hotspot for child sexual exploitation. It's happened to hundreds of girls there now. Quote, they said they were going to attack my friend's house, and she had 2 little siblings, and her mum was quite vulnerable as well. So for her, it was a massive thing. Oh my god, I've got to go, because this is going to happen if I don't. And it's the type of thing that, a child would believe, but it's probably something they would have done. They were absolutely insane, and they were known for violence against women. Quote, It was actually quite a brutal sexual assault. He dug his fingernails into me, and it seemed like there was no actual pleasure for him out of that. It was just control and actually exerting power over someone who's clearly vulnerable and showing, I have you where I want you. Quote, at the sentencing, she was sat behind us, directly behind us in the public gallery. Throughout the whole sentencing, she was constantly saying, fucking lies, lying white bitches. She was a white woman herself, who I imagine may have been groomed, and has obviously now married into the family, shouting obscenities at us. She said to me that God will be the witness for what happens to me. Quote, the police didn't do anything last time. I told them that I was essentially forced, and they smirked at me in my own home and left. So, I mean, there was no evidence that they were going to do anything different, that they were going to actually support us. Quote, I want the institutions to say, you know what, we hold our hands up. We believe you, and we're sorry. I gave up getting justice a long time ago, but just for it to be recognized and believed, that's all I want. When you're being told that you're a liar for such a long time, you begin to believe it, I suppose. I just want someone to say, do you know what? We messed up. We failed in our duty to protect you. And we're sorry, and we're going to learn from this. Quote, one of the assaults that actually happened to my friend, she was in that house and she was forced into it by a 24-year-old woman who said, go in the room with him and have sex with him now. Go and fucking do it. And I remember her scream so loudly, come running back half-dressed and saying that she was bleeding and in pain. Quote, the worst people that exist in this situation, apart from the perpetrators of that horrendous abuse, are the people that sat in those positions within those authorities that had every opportunity to do something about it and chose not to. And when you do that over several decades, then it results in situations like this, and that is how it's thrived, and that's how the culture has, how it was born, and how it's thrived, and how it's surviving, and how it will continue. Quote, it started when I was 13. I was raped probably about 700 different men over 3 years. Inquiry panelist. Did NHS play a part, and were you able to talk to them? Rape gang survivor. I went when I was 13 with chlamydia, and then I got genital herpes, then I had a miscarriage, and that was all between 13 and 15, so they knew something was going on. I did go once and explain to the doctor because I was like, can you give me some antidepressants or something? And the doctor said, well, I don't think that's warrant enough to give you those when you're too young. The NHS is complicit. Rape gang survivor. The gangs are untouchable. They are, because nobody wants to admit that there's a problem, because they don't want to be deemed as racist. Also because it goes higher up and they don't want to be blown open. They don't want it to be blown open. Quote, they said they wanted to take me back to meet their families. So luckily I didn't have a passport, otherwise I might not be sat here right now. Inquiry panelist. The imams who run the mosques, do you think they're aware? Rape gang survivor. They know 100% because my friend was when she was 15. She was sleeping with a guy who was older. She had a baby by him, and his dad was an imam. His dad knew. And he got his son married and said that he wasn't allowed to see the child. They look after their own community. Quote, I remember being with my friend and she lived in a children's home and they would come and pick us up from outside, and then the care home would ring the police and obviously tell them, and then the police would come out and they would call us prostitutes. I don't think the services even down to social services, I don't think they really cared. I think that they had the same thought as most other people, that we were prostitutes and that we wanted it. I don't think they saw how it really was, that it was grooming and rape. They blamed us for it. It was our choice. Quote, it wasn't just rape. It was violence as well. I've had a gun held to my head. I've been beaten so badly that I'm literally covered head to toe in bruises. That was when I was spiked, when I was drugged. I've had a knife at my throat because he wanted to sort me out. 10 to 15 cars full of men. I'd get kidnapped. I don't think people realize. I think they think it's rape. But it was torture as well. I'd be kidnapped and I'd be locked in a room and I'd be beaten. I'd be told if I don't do this, I'm not going to go home. So it was a lot more than just rape. Quote, I was beaten black and blue. Raped. Not only sexually raped with their body parts themselves, but with objects as well. There was an incident I was taken to hospital. It's not even in my medical records. I was taken to A&E because my vagina was split open from a glass bottle. Quote, I just want it to stop and not happen to any other children, and for people to actually act and do something and stop being so scared. Inquiry panelist. How many different men do you think raped you over that period when you were 16? Rape gang survivor. About 100. Panelist. When you were 16 years old. The survivor. Yeah. Rape gang survivor. It was just getting like more and more non-stop phone calls. Everyone knew who I was. I couldn't walk down the street without cars pulling up and saying, get in now. Inquiry panelist. And what would happen when you'd get into a car? Survivor. They just take us off to a house or whatever, and that's when all the bad stuff would happen. Panelist. They'd rape you? Survivor. Yeah, they wouldn't take no for an answer. It was on a daily basis. It was like you'd be in one car, then you'd get a phone call, you better come and meet me now. So you'd get out of that one car and you'd be in the next car and the next car. So it was about 10 in one night. Inquiry panelist. You said around 100 men. What races were there? Rape gang survivor. Mainly Pakistani. Panelist. Were there any white men? Survivor. No. Panelist. Did they ever speak about religion? Survivor. Yeah, loads of times. Like, they used to, like, tell me things about the good angel and the bad angel that I've been, like, kind of possessed, and they've got to punish me and get the badness out of me. That's why they'd have to rape me and do all this stuff to get the badness out of me. I've got to be punished. Yeah, it was all kind of stuff like that. The words they say to you is Yogora, like white trash, white skin. Quote, the taxis would drop a girl off. They'd go in the shop. That taxi would leave, clear the job, and then another taxi would pull up. Girls are half drunk and they're just getting in a taxi thinking it's the same one, and then they're being took to places to get raped. And there's a chat. There was a group chat for all the drivers, so they were all communicating with each other. Mainly Muslim taxi drivers. Quote, I was actually married to an Asian guy and fully converted through the imam. The imam came to my house. I was fully converted. Quote, I heard the police officer's radio go, and then I heard them say they were taking my daughter to Muhammad's brother's address. I begged them not to take her there. I was like, they're the people that are doing this to her. You cannot take her there. They're going to kill her. Because I did believe they was going to. And they didn't listen to me. They did take her there. And like I said, she was abused there by them, by Muhammad. Quote, I remember closing my eyes, and then every now and again I'd peep, and all I can remember seeing is his face. Like, you know when someone's like really, really like trying to like force it in, and then after he did, I just remember being in so much pain and bleeding loads. Like, I was really bleeding. Mother of the rape gang survivor. We've had to firebomb-proof our letterbox because we've had threats to have the house burnt down. She's had threats to get her throat slashed, and I've had threats to get my throat slashed. This has been continuous for 4 years, constantly. Father of rape gang survivor. She had already been raped at this point by a gang, and most of her gang members went to her school. This is where we're going to end this evening. Thank you very much for your time.